button. And as James says, I'm first up, and I'm pleased to be able to give you it'll be a half-hour overview. I've got 20 odd slides just to flick through, just to give you an update on life at IIMS, along with all of the other marine surveying organizations around the world, both in the States and in Europe and in Australia. It's been a really challenging 2 years. And of course, you don't need me to remind you how challenging it's been for you as marine surveyors. There's been lots of difficulties. Let me just pick up a chat here. Oh, hello, morning. Hello, Malcolm. Thank you for your greeting. Okay, so this is just a quick overview on IIMS activities. There's an awful lot going on at IIMS. It's impossible to really, in a half-hour slot, do justice to it. And I do want to touch on the Marine Surveying Academy as well, which is our sister company, wholly owned subsidiary, because they're doing some exciting work as well. So let's crack on. Some of you might know that we were in a position to acquire Morrell's House as we went into the start of the pandemic. A fantastic piece of real estate. It's situated right on the south coast. We're almost on the shore in England, between Portsmouth and Southampton. We've now actually owned it for nearly 2 years. We inherited a building that needed some work doing to it. It's grade 2 listed. If you don't know what that means, essentially it's a building of historical or significant historical interest. Therefore, there are certain things we can and can't do with the building, so we've had to be mindful of those. When we took it on, the windows were rotten, the decor was pretty miserable, and the roof needed some tiles doing. And again, you can't just put any old tiles on the roof. And the windows had to be like for like, which meant they had to be built out of wood, constructed, hand constructed. They're old sash windows, 100 years old originally. So all of that's been a challenge, but the great news is we've invested in our 500-year-old head office, and I think that investment will pay off handsomely. It's a significant asset that we now own, and we'll have that revalued next year when we look to remortgage the building. So just a little bit on head office and what goes on there. We've worked tirelessly over the last 2 or 3 years to move to a paperless society. I can tell you that really, as of the last 2 or 3 weeks, we've actually now achieved that goal. We are now totally paperless. There's not a piece of paper in the building, and that's fantastic. We make sure, obviously, we back things up. You have to be really careful these days with online stuff, but it works well. We've done a lot of succession planning over the last year, really. No disrespect to anybody, but a number of our board are getting old. A number of the committee members were just getting old. We've had 1 or 2 people retire, and it's been necessary to look at that. I've got a slide on that coming up in a minute. We've appointed 2 new team members this year. Rosie Webb takes on all of our web name and what it describes her job title. She's looking after our websites. We do have 19 websites in total across the whole business. There's all sorts that we run online. And Rachel Moores, who joined us, she's been with us a couple of months. She's working in the Marine Surveying Academy, running courses over there. So despite the pandemic, the last 2 years actually for the Institute have been very good. We've managed to increase our turnover, and we've made a satisfactory profit level, and that enables us to make some investments for the future. Got some exciting plans, which I'm not going to unveil today, but which you'll see coming out over the next 12 months. So a little bit on succession planning. We've refreshed the management board this year. We've added 3 new members. That now stands at about 14 in total. They've come from all over the world. I mean, the board is an international board. Peter Broad, who sends you his very best, by the way, can't be with you today. He's our new president, who was elected in June. He's currently on a ship near Guam doing a survey, he tells me, but he does send you his best wishes. And we've gone through our committees. We've selected several new members for the Professional Assessment Committee. We're quite specific in what we're looking for. We need people who've got skill sets in a whole range of marine surveying disciplines, both for yacht and small craft and for commercial ship. So we've made 4 new appointments there. We've also co-opted a couple of new members onto our Certifying Authority Committee. If you don't know what the Certifying Authority is, I'll explain that all a little bit. That's a peculiarly English thing. And I continue to chair the Education Committee. We'd certainly like to add a couple more onto the Education Committee. And I always say nowadays to anybody, if you feel you have something to contribute and you have a bit of time and you want to contribute something to any of our work, then we'd be very happy to talk to you. Just a little bit on the membership. We broke through the 1,000 member mark last year. We're still growing. We lost 35, I think, who didn't pay their bills or their dues, so we've removed them. They came off the system at the end of June. But we're growing. In fact, this week alone, we've had 5 or 6 new membership applications. We turn those around as fast as we can. They all go through the professional assessment committee for review. And it's important you know that, actually. We don't just let anybody in. We've turned down 4 or 5 in the last couple of weeks who just we felt weren't suitable. And membership now is in over 100 countries, 107 the last time I looked. Full members is still the highest category at about 600. We have a number of affiliates who've joined the organization over quite a long period of time. There were some people who have been affiliates for 5 or 6 years. We felt that was far too long for somebody to still be an affiliate. We want to see people progressing up through the scale. So we're just underway with an upgrade initiative, and I think we've got 5 or 6 people who have already upgraded from affiliates. So that's important. And as I said, just to reiterate, we eyeball every application. Nobody gets into IIMS unless they do really meet the strict criteria that we set. The way we drive membership these days is through a targeted below-the-line digital marketing campaign. I'd love to be able to tell you I understand how it all works, but I don't. I employ a Google scientist. He's a data scientist, and he drives these incredible campaigns below the line. They're very targeted. We use LinkedIn, we use Facebook, we use Google, all sorts of ways to try and attack potential new applications. And it just seems to work. It means that when we put our message out there, it's going to people who are almost sort of qualified to be members. We just need to persuade them to do so. That generates a steady inflow of leads. We've just undertaken a membership survey. Some of you may have taken part in that. If you did, thank you very much. We've actually had, what do we got, about 270 applications or surveys back. It's 4 years since we've done a survey. That's a higher return than we had 4 years ago. Much has changed in the world, of course. Again, you don't need me to tell you that. And the 3 things I picked out, in fact, we haven't published the results yet. We published on the 1st of September, but the 3 things that I wanted to share with you today is that 78% of people who responded said it was incredibly valuable to show that you are a member of a professional surveying organization. That might sound obvious, but 78% is a really high figure. And the overall approve rating for IIMS was extremely high, which is very pleasing for me personally and for my colleagues at head office. 68% stating they ranked IIMS higher than most, 44%, or some other organizations, 24%. So thank you very much if you responded for giving us a high approval rating. And again, just we punch above our weight. We're a small team, really. There's 11 of us, but we work incredibly hard. And they were given, you gave the head office team a very resounding vote of confidence and thanks, with 90% saying the team is always or usually quite efficient. So my thanks to you. Those results will be published in the report magazine in September, and they'll also be published in the news bulletin in September as well. So the full results will be available to view in just a couple of weeks. The Marine Surveyor Search app is one of 4 apps that we've launched in recent years. If you are a member, then you are automatically listed on the app. Very much the next generation search tool. We had it specially built for us. It grows month by month. We get more and more people downloading it. I looked last week, we now had over 2,000 downloads since we launched it. We have adapted it and we are continuing to adapt it. You can now search by country, which you could do before. You can search by surveyor specialization. You can even now search by nearest port, harbour and marina. So that's a sophisticated little thing. If you haven't downloaded it and had a look, then you can access it from Google Play or through the Apple Store. That's a freebie. There's no charge for that. What I like about it actually is you can actually make calls from the screen. You can email from the screen. It's a direct link then between us and you, the member. So if you're not familiar with the search app, do have a look. CPD, continuing professional development. It's something that we've never mandated in IIMS, and consequently still only about 50% do it. But if you're not familiar with it, what we have done is there's a little roundel with a tick in the box that says a member is CPD compliant. If they've got their 15 points for the year, and don't forget to claim some points for this conference, 5 points. And it's all managed through another app that we had built a few years ago, extremely easy to use. Last year, we had about 1,500 claims made by members. About 10% were rejected. Lack of evidence. That's all we ask, is that you provide some factual evidence. I remember saying to a guy, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, if you go to a boat show, take a selfie of yourself at the boat show, just attach it to the app. There's the evidence that the following day we had exactly that coming in. A guy came in and put a selfie of himself at a boat show, which was wonderful. Professional qualifications, for those of you who are not familiar with IIMS, we are one of the leading educators, and actually the original, we were the first one. We have an award-winning 2 professional qualifications, one in commercial ship and one in yacht and small craft. We've currently got over 200 people enrolled in that program. Again, we drive the interest from targeted marketing. We get generally anything between 50 and 70, not applications, they're expressions of interest every month. And they're highly targeted people. So we know that when they come in, they've got a genuine interest in studying. Vicky, who looks after the professional qualifications program, all on distance learning basis, then talks to them and will sign them up and so on. So we've moved to online welcome seminars, not something we used to do, but we now do that with each intake, which is quarterly. There's always a seminar. There might be 3 or 4, there might be 10 or 15 people on that. We'll put up a couple of tutors. They can chat with the students. And the first thing everybody says is, well, how long should my assignment be? You know, and of course you can't answer that. We don't really give a number of words that we would expect. But clearly, if you submitted 1,000 words for an assignment, that's not enough. If you submitted 20,000 words, that's too much. As one of the tutors said the other day, just answer the question, which I thought was good advice. We also run a number of student tutorials now. Again, that's all new. So some of the guys who've written the material will come online for an hour or 2, and we'll talk about the particular module, and answer questions, offer support and help and guidance. It is quite daunting for people who've not been in a studying environment, in some cases for 20 years. They're coming to marine surveying as a second career. Perhaps they've been at sea for 20 years, they come ashore, and going back into a study environment is tough. So we're working really hard to give them the support that we can. We've got a module coming on surveying super yachts. I always felt that was a gap in our portfolio. Hoping something will be there by the end of this year. And we've got 3 units that are currently under review. We do review all of the content periodically. I mean, clearly it does change. Not all of them change, but some of them are subject to all sorts of alterations. And I suppose the big news, the big investment this year was in January, when we launched a new student portal. Absolutely state-of-the-art, made to our specifications, absolutely superb studying facility. It steers people to a lot of material. It really puts everything at their fingertips. The old one was 12 years old, looked rather clunky and old-fashioned, and I don't think was a particularly user-friendly platform at all. But the student portal is, and we've had some fantastic feedback from students as well. We launched a new professional qualification last year in marine corrosion. James Randy certainly knows a bit about this, and it's proved to be quite successful so far. There are 10 modules available to study. They're incredibly in-depth. Of those 10, 7 need to be passed to gain the qualification. It's of high technical content, produced by a friend of the Institute really now, and he's an absolute master of corrosion, Dr. Mike Lewis. We've run a couple of programs now. It's available so Mike will do live broadcasts. So we do 10 of them over the course of a month. Typically they last 2 or 3 hours each module. And then there's a test on each one. That's all done online. We use something called Class Marker, which is a very sophisticated marking system and questioning system. So for those who can't handle it live, either because they're too busy or because they are out working, or the time zone is a problem, they can pick that up on catch up. It's all videoed, and a number of people actually took it on catch up, studied in their own time, and then came forward, took the test and gained the qualification. So we had 15 people come through that last year. The next one will start in October. I personally believe corrosion is a subject that is still a bit of a dark art for many surveyors. You need to be sure what you're looking at and how you're going to report what you're looking at. So if that's an area you think you would want more knowledge in, then I'd encourage you to go and have a look and see what that qualification is all about. So one of the things that's come out from the survey, and indeed this conference is a very good example, is the need for training to be hybrid going forward. I don't think we're ever going to see those days again when we get hundreds of people in a room. I think there now has to be an option for people join remotely, not least because it's a more cost-effective way. If you're living 1,000, 2,000 miles away, it's very expensive to travel in. So, if you're long distance, you can pick up an event like this. And I think most future events we do will offer a hybrid situation. It's not always possible if you're doing some practical training in a boatyard. That's much harder to do in an online environment, but generally the programs we run will now be online. We've just done a report writing seminar. We run those quarterly. Ran one earlier this week. Ken Johnson, I can see, is online today. I know Ken was on the report writing seminar. That's a 3-hour online gig, and we do those quarterly, as I say, and we had, I think, 45 delegates for the last one, so there's always a strong demand for it. Tonnage training is something that we're running in September. We've turned that into a hybrid, so it's a two-part program now. You can study part one, which is the online theory, delivered by Fraser Noble, who's the chair of our certifying authority. And then part two, you go away and you film yourself or get someone to film you actually doing a tonnage, and then you can submit that as your evidence that you know what you're doing. We then scrutineer that, and then you get the badge to be able to become a tonnage surveyor. That took a long time to get through the MCA, the Maritime and Coast Guard Agency in the UK. I had to work quite closely with them, but in the end, they embraced it fully. I'm delighted to say we're able to offer that now. We have a small craft training day in November. Got some exciting stuff going on there. Looking at life-saving equipment. We're looking at servicing of life-saving. We're looking at fire systems, suppression systems. We've got something on tier 3 emissions. So that's coming up in November. So keep an eye out for that. Again, you can join that remotely. So a little bit about the certifying authority. It's an important part of our business. It represents 10% of our income. Our fleet size is steady. We have about 300 vessels that are in code. And essentially in the UK, if you're not familiar with it, if you use a boat commercially up to 24 meters, part of it needs to be coded. We have not a huge number actually of coding examiners in the UK. We've got about 25 that we have overall. That's within IIMS. Overall, there might be 150 code examiners around the UK. And it's run by a committee. We have to go through a pretty sticky audit every year with the MCA. They're always looking for challenges and trying to create some issues for us. So that's always a squeaky bum day, as we call it. But it runs well. One of the challenges we have, there's only 5 of us now, 5 organisations who provide coding services in the UK. We all seem to apply a different standard, and that, frankly, is unacceptable going forward. I've been right at the heart of trying to develop a common standard for code examiners, and I think we're going to get there. It's going to take another year, probably perhaps to 18 months. One thing that is new is the MCA decided that the separate tonnage agreement we have, that's another word, means we can provide tonnage services to Red Ensign flag states. That needed to be under a separate agreement, which is now an attachment appended to our existing MCA contract for providing certifying authority coding services. And that's why we now offer tonnage training, and we have to have a committee meeting to say, this is what we're doing with our tonnage business and so on. Tonnage is a very good source of revenue for us. It's a very good source of revenue for marine surveyors as well. So if that's something of interest, do make contact with us and chat further. One of the bits of my job I like the most is producing the report magazine. This has absolutely gone from strength to strength over the time I've been with the Institute, partly because I've got a 30-year background in media and publishing. So I had a bit of a head start there, but it's the one thing that I really enjoy putting together. We were up for an award last year. Actually, we didn't win, sadly. We were, I think we got down to the final 4. We didn't win. It was Trade Magazine of the Year. So this is a quick look at what's coming in September. We're always over 100 pages now. I think the September report will probably be 124 pages. You can read it electronically, either in PDF format or in e-reader format. There's some changes to SOLAS 2024. We need to tell you about that. And then I focused this issue on 2 specific areas. One is anti-fouling and biofouling. Got 3 articles on that topic, which is suddenly a very hot topic, it seems. And we're coming back to look at container stack collapses. Got 2 pretty lengthy articles on that, what's going wrong, some of the stats, and what we're going to try and do to sort it out. Britain's historic little ships, that's a quirky little article, nothing to do with marine surveying, but I do try and put in 1 or 2 lifestyle articles, and that's been written by our past president, Jeff Waddington. Looks at the those ships that were used in the Second World War, many of which are still being used. They operate out of Portsmouth Harbour. They're 80 years old now, and they're running tours around the harbour, and Jeff codes those boats. So it's a lovely little article. So there we go. That gives you a flavour. Published on the 1st of September. You can pick it up from either the news bulletin if you receive that and open it. Otherwise, you'll find it freely available through the IIMS website. A little bit on communications and social media. The monthly news bulletin actually, again, received particularly high approval ratings in the recent survey. And I was astonished. I mean, it's opened by, on average, 4,000 people each month, which for an organisation with 1,000 members is quite remarkable. But I do circulate it it goes out to P&I clubs, it goes out to marine insurers, goes out to underwriters, and then a whole raft of marine surveyors. So very high traction with this particular product. Generally 20 pages each month now. A lot of information in there that is relevant to surveyors. Latest regulation changes, rules, and a lot of reports that are issued. We're pushing all of those into there now. So again, if you're not picking that up, I think you're missing a worthwhile publication. Do keep an eye out for that. Again, freely available through the IIMS website if you don't get a direct invitation to download it. Our LinkedIn channel is now followed by 8,000 people. That just grows exponentially all the time. The YouTube channel, again, scored very highly, which surprised me in the survey. We have 1,500 subscribers, well over 300 original videos on there now. A lot of them made at conferences and so on, and some of them at training days we've held. So do have a look there. It's a free resource. It always saddens me, some of the videos on there have been watched thousands of times, and some have been watched about 6 or 8 times. So it was a bit sad when you see only 6 or 8 viewers. So go and push the numbers up, please. The website absolutely is the most comprehensive online surveying resource of its kind, free to access. So you're welcome to use it. We get an average of 15,000 visitors a month. It's extremely popular and well used. It's very rich in editorial content. There's something like 3,000 news stories and editorial features there now. And then we built a bank of resources. There's links to some pretty peculiar and hard to find shipping regulations, boating regulations. If you want to find the Belize yacht code, for example, which I guess is a bit out there, you'll find it on the IIMS website. It's a bit of a struggle to find on Google. So we've collated all of that. It's all there, it's all available, all free to use. One of the most impressive statistics I think I can pass on is the PDF download tracker. So all of these PDFs we have on the website, we put a tracker on there in October 2020, and it is astonishing to see we've had 75,000 downloads, 75,000 PDFs downloaded since October 2020. So a lot of people are finding that content and using it. Let me just pick up a chat message here. Gary says, good morning. Hello, Gary. Good to see you. Right. Handy guides, they're not new. We launched those probably 5 years ago now. We're up to 26 handy guides. They're available in paperback and e-reader format. In fact, the e-reader format is now becoming, or PDF format is much more popular now than the paperback. But that's fine. It's instant access and so on. You don't have to rely on the post. Typically, we price these guides between $25 and $50 US. It was always my intention to try and make them affordable by the majority. A lot of marine surveying books are, well over sort of $150. I just think that's too much to ask people to pay. We've got 3 new guides under development. One of which, James, I must confess, I've pinched. I've forgotten who ran it. In fact, you've got. I've forgotten who he is. Who's speaking at the end of the day? Help me out, James, there. Let me find his name. Lloyd Griffin. Lloyd did a presentation on things that you see that you can't believe. And Jeff Waddington is going to actually write a little handy guide on that. So he's mining his data bank of photos, and he's going to write a little book about that. We've got one coming up on surveying masts and rigs, which I think is an important topic, and there'll be one coming up on surveying super yachts as well. So those will be available probably over the next 3 to 6 months. I get involved in some interesting external matters, not on this slide, but I am currently involved in working with the Australian Maritime Organisation and the Australian government. They've been looking at the work of the regulator out there, and IIMS is playing quite a key part in that. We sit on the Maritime and Coast Guard Agency, MCA's Technical Interpretation Forum. That's a bit of a slog, hard work, but we're looking at new codes that are coming along. There's a new code coming up for workboats in the UK, particularly relevant with the wind farm crew transfer vessels, of which there are many now coming out. So that's getting a complete rewrite. So we've got 2 seats on that council. We run and attend a Small Craft Surveyors Forum, which is pulling together all of the other UK-based organisations who are membership surveying organisations. We haven't met for a while, but we will be getting that back on the road again. And then almost a year old, we launched something called the Maritime Professional Council. That's a UK-centred, UK-based organisation. It's an amalgamation of, well, there are sort of 8 or 9 of us. We are the leading professional bodies in the UK, and our role is simply to hold regulators to account. There is some really poor regulation being made, and we're not trying to make life difficult for them. We're merely trying to say, here is a group of organisations whose members are highly skilled, highly technical, have been at this game for a very long time, and we would urge you to consider this, and this before you set out your regulations. Okay, let's move on to the Surveying Academy. I'm conscious of time, so just flick through a couple of slides here. MSA was launched in 2013. I'm a director of that business, as is my colleague Hilary Axel, and as I say, it's a wholly owned subsidiary of IIMS. It was really a place where we could put, if I would call it, non-core IIMS business, really. So it's about providing standard solutions for niche marine sectors. We're currently active in these 3 markets, although the first one, IIMS, is a bit dormant at the moment, but the other 2 are absolutely roaring along. I can tell you just a little bit about each. So IIMS is the International Registered Marine Installation Inspectors. Some of you will have heard me speak about that before. These are guys who are assessing the viability of subsea pipelines and that sort of thing. 8-year-old scheme. COVID really hasn't done it any favors. That's been really quiet. 100 people came through that qualification. We started reaccrediting them after 5 years. We've got a number now who've been reaccredited, and we have actually had discussion. We have concluded discussions with tutors. It's just about how we reactivate the standard. And the feeling is now that we want to change the scope of it a bit and modernise it. So there'll be some work going on that over the next 6 months to 9 months, I think. And then the RMCI standard, the Registered Marine Coatings Inspector standard, this was formed back in 2014. The reason it exists is because 50% of the boats that were coming out of the super yacht yards, out of the sheds, were subject to litigation because of a poor paint job. Sounds bonkers, but absolutely true. And what was happening is that some of these oligarchs and so on who have mega bucks were being promised their boat would look like their Bentley or Rolls Royce with the coating finish, and it didn't quite look like that. And they would simply say, well, that's not what you promised me. I want $50 million back because you've ripped me off. And that was a problem, a big problem for the industry. So this program has been about upskilling those who inspect super yacht coating systems. And I wasn't aware, but a complex system could contain anything between 10 and 14 coats of paint. If there's a problem when coat 6 or 7 goes on, that'll still be there when coat 14 goes on, or could be. And we've given those RMCIs the knowledge, the expertise. It's been a fabulously exciting program to conduct. We are well into revalidation now. We've got a number of people. It got a bit held up again because of COVID, but we've got people now coming through. We've just run a couple of revalidation courses, so they'll be good for another 5 years. And interestingly enough, this RMCI standard is now quoted in the recent ISOs, a new ISO, as an acceptable super yacht paint standard. So we're working hard with the refit yards, and with the shipyards who are building these things. It is our intention to come and run a course in the States, hoping we might do something probably in Fort Lauderdale. Won't be this year, but it'll be sometime next year, I think. So watch out if that's an area of interest to you. And finally, I want to talk about the eCMID AVI scheme. CMID stands for Common Marine Inspection Document. This is a product that is part of the International Marine Contractors Association, IMCA's portfolio. And they invited us to run this program. Again, historically, there were people coming on board these vessels who simply had no knowledge. The skipper, the master, had no knowledge, sorry about that, who was actually coming on board. So if you're going to inspect a jackup, and this is an audit, you're doing an audit on a jackup, it's not a survey, you're assessing that vessel's safety management system at that point in time. And there were people doing that work who hadn't got a clue what a jackup was, absolutely ridiculous, and charging money for those services. So we completely regulated that sector, and now certainly the big players in the market will not let anybody on their vessel unless they can prove their accreditation and show their card. So we've had 800 apply for accreditation over that period. 600 have now got the badge and have been accredited. We've run dozens of courses around the world, and we regularly organise a sort of a one-day seminar for them. Fascinating industry sector. It applies obviously to big ships. You've got pipe and cable layers, jackups, as I've mentioned, and then also you've got the burgeoning under 24-metre workboat section, again with these wind farm crew transfer vessels and so on. So that's a vibrant community, and it's something that we're quite proud to be able to put our name to. Right, so that's a half-hour slog through from me. I hope that's helpful. I hope it's given you a bit more confidence if you don't know IIMS as to who we are and what we do. Always love speaking to people, even if you're not a member of the organisation. Do come and talk to us. We'd love to encourage you to join other programs that we run. You don't have to be a member to do the professional qualification, to study for the marine qualification, marine corrosion qualification. Make sure you come to the website, use the resources that are available for you. At the end of the day, all I want to do is to try and help you to become better at what you do. So with that, James, I'm going to hand back to you, and I'll stop the share. I'll stop the recording as well.